Can I have your name first?
Hi, my name is Samer.
That's all? Where do you live?
I live in the DC area, in the Washington DC area.
How long have you been involved with the protest against Israel?
If I want to go back in history, in 1987 was the first time I came out to protest with my parents.
As a baby, I guess.
No, I was 18 at the time. And I'm 56 years old now. And I'm still speaking out for Palestine against the atrocities of what Israel has been doing for the last 77 years.
Where were you born?
I was born actually in Saudi Arabia. That's where my parents were before they came here. But my father was born in Akka. My mother was born in Haifa, in Palestine. And the occupation threw them out of their home in 1948.
Both those cities are Israeli territories. Your family is from current Israeli territories, right?
That's what they call it, but that's what we will never call.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand what
Correct.
they have been
Yes, ma'am.
through. How they decided to move, because Israel always says that Arabs in Israel are happier.
There is no happy Arab in Israel. There is no happy human being in Israel except for the Zionists. The Arabs have never wanted to lose their land. 17 members of my family have been killed in Gaza. Over 50 people from my family have been killed since 1948 when they stole our school, they stole our homes, they stole our farms, and they basically had given us no choice because we had nothing to protect ourselves with.
So what happened to your family in the Israeli territory after they established that state, Jewish state? How they decided to move? What happened to them?
Well, my family was forced to leave, and who didn't leave was either killed or they were forced to run off to other parts of Palestine. And at the time, they didn't have much of a choice. My dad was 12 years old at the time when his mother took him and his siblings over, and they ran to the borders of Syria, and that's how they escaped the murder and the killing. And then they didn't know if they leave, they're not going to be able to come back. They thought it's a stage that is going to be temporary and they will be able to come back home.
How about the others who live there, work there? Seems okay, even if you don't, when you don't ask them what is wrong in this place, they always say that you're always different. I know that. But beside that, they are still there, kind of safe. How do you view it?
It's an occupation. An occupation is never fair to one party. When you have roadblocks everywhere you want to go, when you want to have permissions if you want to cross from one block, if you want to leave your house to go.
No, I'm asking the other Arabs in Israeli territory. They are still there, but
Yes.
your family was pushed out.
Right.
What was the difference? Why they are still there doing their jobs in Israel, and then they are kind of relatively happy?
Some people were not bombed and killed. Some people just ran off to other cities when Akka and Haifa were first attacked. They ran off, and some other people found refugees in other homes in other places. Children that went with some of our, older mothers and so on, that took them and went to either Lebanon or Syria. They were just escaping a war. There was no mental thinking of what they want to do. Now, there were siblings of ours that stayed in Palestine, and they went to either Nablus or Jerusalem or other parts, or I think at the same time Ramallah. They stayed there, and they learned that they lost everything that they owned where they ran away from. They had a choice either to stay there and to live there, but with no rights, they can stay and build something new, but they had to keep fighting an occupation that is unfair, injustice. So unfortunately they stayed, but they are enslaved. Just like how
How come you have even member of Congress in Israel, Muslim Arabs?
Sorry.
There are still member of Congress. There are doctors. How they became enslaved? You think?
You see, they became enslaved under a ruling. I watch the news very regularly, and I see even on the Israeli channels on TV, Israeli 12 channel and 14. I watch and I see when they come out to speak in their Knesset, and how Ben Gafir or somebody else speaks back to them, and some of the rhetoric and the threats that they make to them they make them feel we're superior to you here in Israel. You have no voice. You will always be underneath it. Everybody knows there are two different levels in the society in Israel. You're either an Israeli, or you're an Arab or a Muslim or a Christian. You're a second category. You will never be treated equal.
To be Israeli, do you have to be Jewish only? Does the race play into it?
No, because of course, Israel itself, if you look at Israel, Israel has people from all over the world. Russians, Ukrainians, Polish. Their president is Polish. But to be an Israeli with the ideology of Zionism, you definitely have to be part of their propaganda. Now, yes, there are Palestinians that have an Israeli passport, because that's the only way they can send a child to go to school or college somewhere outside. If they want to get health care, they need to have a passport. You can't stay over there under a
Palestinian territory.
In Palestinian territory, you are enslaved by the injustice system that
in Israel.
That the Palestinian Authority has.
Yes, but not in Israel.
Right.
If you are an Arab Israeli with Israeli passport, relatively equal.
All the people that are in the Palestinian side that are living under the Palestinian West Bank, most of them have Israeli passports. So you can have a passport, yes, an Israeli citizenship, but you are obligated to follow their rules and laws and everything that they say.
Like Jewish Israeli people.
Absolutely. But you are not given the same rights. It's discriminated, just like license plates on a car. You're given, if you're an Arab, you have a different kind of a license plate color than an Israeli would have. At a
Even
checkpoint,
though you have Israeli passport.
correct. Yes. At a checkpoint, you'll get stopped. Everywhere, you get stopped.
What else?
I've been to Palestine 8 times. Excuse me. I've been to Palestine 8 times. And of course, every time I go there, I have to be stopped. I have to be asked for 4 hours questions. I have to, even though I'm an American citizen, I don't have a Palestinian passport. But they know, of course, who we are, and they ask you, where are you from? Okay.
Let's talk about protests in the US. A lot is going on in universities. Yeah, sure, fix it.
Do you mind?
Yeah, not at all. Do you feel safe during Trump administration doing these protests? And are you afraid of being followed, tagged, or being in a situation that you have to pay a big price?
Well, since we started coming out, we learned one thing about the United States of America that neither Trump, nobody else can do anything about, which is
Constitution.
Our Constitution. Our Constitution protects us with our First Amendment. Now,
did you submit any request out of being kind to be here today, for example, or did you just come here and did your protest?
Came here and did my protest like I've been doing for the last 20 months. Most of the lieutenants in the white shirts standing in front of me here, and a lot of the DC police officers, they know me. I've been out over 500 days in the last 2 years. Whether it's the White House, Congress, all different locations where...
Are you grateful for being an American regarding to rights that you have?
You know, Americans have rights, but they are oppressed by AIPAC and the Zionist lobby in the United States, where a foreign government dictates how we run our government. Our Congress is corrupt. Our Senate is corrupt. We only have a few good senators and a few good congressmen and women that are actually standing to fix a lot of the damage that the Trump administration has done, the Biden administration has done, Obama has done. None of them had followed the law to respect the law for law and justice. People know their rights and they know what law allows us to do. For protesting for the last 2 years, not a single one of our friends on the streets have been arrested. Why? Because we follow the law. We are peaceful protesters looking for justice and peace. And that's what
But
makes
you
us
speak violent towards IDF, for example. Why?
IDF is a terrorist organization. That's the way I see them. I don't see them as human beings. I see them as criminals, as savages that kill babies, rape men, rape children, rape women. We've seen it all over social media. They have lost so much ground on social media to a point they want to buy TikTok. They want to control social media. Benjamin Netanyahu said it in an interview in New York yesterday.
There is a presumption in the US that you are Palestinian American. I know many of other Palestinians in the US as well. Sincere protesters expressing themselves.
Right.
When it comes to Congress or other power circles, there is a presumption of either Qatar or other Gulf states, for think tanks same, funding them. And it's not their original idea or ideology. How do you view this?
Well, the way I look at it is everyone from our respectful kings and queens and royal highnesses are controlled by the West. We know that very well, whether it's Qatar, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Egypt, they're all controlled. They all look after their own interest to guarantee to stay in their seats and their positions. If they wanted to free Palestine and they all put their hands together, we would have freed Palestine 75 years ago.
Why they don't do it?
Greed, power, and money. Justice is not one of them.
If they are really powerful, why they don't want a Palestine and why they don't use that power against West?
Because they were always isolated, and there was examples given of each one of them when things went south. When King Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia decided to cut the oil off the West, what did they do? They had his relative assassinate him, who was actually raised here in the US. They called it a propaganda, whatever it is, but he shot him and he got killed after that. Who paid the price? A fool that basically the United States played with. And so on for everybody else, the Saudi royal family. As long as they're guaranteed to follow orders, they will continue to have protection to make sure that the government never gets overthrown and the king stays a king, even though we've seen their corruption. We know of their corruption, but again, they want to remain in power and wealth and money. Even though I haven't forgotten, as an American citizen, what happened to journalist Adnan Khashoggi. I know how he was killed, slaughtered in a slaughterhouse inside the Saudi embassy. What happened to all that? Everybody forgot about it. I didn't forget about it. A man walked in with his own legs and he was massacred inside a country, but Saudi Arabia did not respect. The Mossad didn't respect where he was, which country he was.
Can we say your concerns are addressing your own Arab leaders in the region, in the Gulf, rich or poor nations, doesn't matter,
Right.
more than West?
Well, I will tell you, Jordan, Egypt has the most powerful, I want to say Arab army, that if they wanted to put their hands together with all the other friends in the region.
They are not as rich as Gulf states, right? The equality is not good economic.
The problem is the United States talks about democracy. There's no democracy. If this was a socialist country, then you'll have democracy. But they don't care what the people say. All what they care about what they say, what they want. This country lives on wars. You will see After this is over, within another year or two, there will be a new war that is going to open up and happen. And most likely, unfortunately, it's going to be with Iran.
Do you view this agreement realistic?
Absolutely not. It's a joke. I never believe a word Netanyahu or Trump says. Not a word.
If Hamas accepts, still you think that they will not honor it? Or do you think Hamas will not accept these terms?
I'm hoping that Hamas will accept the terms. I'm hoping so. There's nothing that bothers me at night when I go home and I want to sleep, except the images of the children being slaughtered and being bombed in tents. I want to see that stop. But it is not justice to just make it stop.
One last question. Jewish or Zionists who believe Jewish state or Jerusalem for Israelis, they always remind that how they were in the history, back in the history, and then they were pushed out. So it was belonged to them, and they endured much of hardship because of that. How do you view it? They were there, and you used to live together like 1,000 years ago, isn't it?
The way I look at it, all of the prophets were in Palestine. All religions were in Palestine. I can't recall of a single Muslim during the time when the Muslims were in control. They weren't spitting at Christians. They weren't killing Jews. We lived as neighbors side by side, just like we live as neighbors side by side here.
When are you talking about? Like before 48?
Before 48.
But I'm talking about 1,000 years ago.
Thousands of years ago. There were different systems, but people lived together in peace. They can claim 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and they can keep saying it, but
they were sent out of Canaan. But isn't it true?
That means no. That means the United States, they need to leave, because this country is not for them. That's for the indigenous people. The American Indians, the Americans weren't here. Europe didn't exist as Europe. It was a different empire, same as the rest of the world. If everyone is going to say, oh, one day...
So why don't you accept Israeli state then and look for an agreement for two-state solution? Most of the Palestinians are refusing its existence too.
Because of the way that happened, there was no dialogue. It was all about blood, kill, and murder. If you would have came and sat on a table and said, let's find a home for people that were oppressed in Germany, in Poland, in Europe, remind you, they all got thrown out of Europe. They were being slaughtered. We were not the ones that took them out of Germany and Poland and took them out of their homes that they had. We actually, at the time they were brought to us, we were occupied by the British.
How did your Arab leaders manage that?
Arab leaders
at the time
tried to stand, but they didn't have the power that the entire Western United States had. So there wasn't even a fair comparison of power.
Ottoman got very weak too after the World War I. How do you view their ruling in Palestine for hundreds of years?
You know, during the Ottoman Empire in Palestine, I believe there was more justice for Palestine during that time than it was ever, or it will ever be with Israel. There's no justice with Israel.
Why they didn't leave it to that way? Turkey has an influence for the Arabs. They are Muslim too, but British came in and other rules followed. How do you view that?
Well, look at it this way. Turkey or the Ottoman Empire, if it didn't fall, they wouldn't have given it away. It's only certain powers, when stronger powers come and occupy and conquer.
How do you view Erdoğan? Is he that influential for the Arab street, do you think? Or do you think he is two-faced?
Definitely two-faced. With my respect to him and his wife, who I met in person once, I will say that if he wanted from day one, he should have cut ties with Israel. Instead of providing them with oil, resources, food, throughout the genocide. This continued and continued and continued to make sure that Israel is getting everything that they wanted because he's controlled. He's controlled by the two parties, the United States of America and Israel. Unfortunately, he's also bought out. You know, the Turkish people deserve better. Turkish people are amazing people and we love them very much. And I know they love us too. But I believe they have so much injustice with Erdoğan being in power.
Do you believe Palestinian cause is an Islamic cause? For example, secular people, leftists are in Turkey, they care about Palestine. But also Muslims or more religious, they care maybe in a deeper level. How do you view all this?
See, the way I view things, when we start looking at things from a religious perspective, that's when we start losing ground. I believe people should be equal no matter who they believe in, what they believe in. We lived as Muslims, Christians, and Jews in Palestine in peace for so long. Never had an issue with it. Same thing in many other countries where Muslims and Christians live side by side. Never have an issue whatsoever. Now, unfortunately, you know, when extremist parties come, that's when we have problems in our nations. As people always throw in a religion as part of the problem. Religion is never the problem. Extremism is a problem.
So do you see Hamas as extremist too, even though there are reasons behind for them to be in this state?
I viewed Hamas were put in back in 17 years ago, well 18, 19 years ago now. There was no control over Gaza to have someone to overlook and to oversee and to rule Gaza. They did an election like any other nation does, and they won an election and they basically had the voice to be the ones to hold peace inside the city. So they were funded by the United States through Qatar. So the United States always gives orders to whatever needs to happen and take place. Whether it's Qatar providing money, whether it's any other country from the Gulf or Saudi Arabia or anything, nothing happens without the approval of the White House. That approval has to come.
So White House approves Hamas to attack in October 7th?
Just like they actually put ISIS in their position. That's what the White House will never ever tell the truth about what happened on September 11. We all know it's the Mossad in Israel behind the Twin Towers that went down.
How come? Those people came from Palestinian territory, aren't they? Are they working with the Israeli intelligence?
Absolutely not.